we start with Ashtamurti. Ashtamurti. Number 5 on the shlokas.
Ashtamurti, Vishwamurti, Yadamurti, Pragiyate, Mantramurti, Numonetam, Tachimurti, Maheshitu.
Once again.
Ashamurti, Vishwamurti, Yadamurti, Pragiyate, Mantramurti, Numonetram, Tachimurti, Maheshitu.
The verses which we have recited from 1 to 5, they give the basic structure somehow of the subtle body. Now, if you study medicine, you have to know the anatomy and physiology. And if you do yoga and study the subtle body, you have to know what are the components. And in the very verse 3, Shiva addresses the Devi and says, Jnatva shariram, know the body in this way. Body means here the subtle body. And the subtle body has certain components and certain levels, and these are very technical terms which many are known from other sources and more from Hatha Yoga, which is much later. Here we are in the Tantric level. And it is a complex study to coordinate those components. I have tried, and I don't want us to go too much. I know everybody knows something about chakra, nadi, and all these things, but I don't want us to land in technical discussion of these terms and their implication and so on. We follow the text in its brevity also, but definitely trying to understand what is meant by these terms and how they are connected. Now, they are definitely inherited from earlier tantric sources. And at least one, we have it now, this Nishvasa Tattva Samhita, which has a number of these terms, also very technical terms of the pranas and so on, which I couldn't find anywhere else. And in that Nishvasa Tattva Samhita, you find early mention and definition of those terms. So the very beginning, of course, Shiva immediately proclaims that now I'm going to reveal the subtle meditation, the highest. Now, highest is, of course, Kshemaraja says it's not the highest because the highest follows, but up to this point it is the highest, Sukshmam Anuttamam. And then comes that enumeration of these components of the subtle body in just very brief 1.5 verses. So how can you expand that into description and understanding of how they are connected and how they are to be understood? So, of course, Maharaja gives a long commentary on this. And I have also tried to make a table. Unfortunately, it's not contained in your tables. Did I start with the Mangala of this 7? Not in Sanskrit, but translation. I meditate on the higher eye of the all-pervasive Lord, besprinkling with my own nectar the body, which is an assemblage of centers, supports, voids, goals, knots, channels, etc. Chakra Adhara, Viyat, Lakshya, Granthi, Nadi. And this beautiful expression already, I besprinkling with my own nectar the body, which is an assemblage of all these elements. And then we come to trying to understand how these components of the subtle body are related. Now, Jnatva Shariram, O Goddess, knowing the body, this knowing the body in this way, it's a help to, like for the doctor, to know the physiology and anatomy. So for the yogi, he has to know what is all there and what he experiences and what does it mean. I know many people, especially in the West, who have done some meditation and who also have some experience, and they say, I don't know what's happening in this place and that place and so on. So, well, there you have to know something of the yogic tradition to understand what is going on in your own body, in your own practice. So this is a requirement, but definitely Shiva is here extremely brief to tell us what are all these elements. And the beautiful, I will come to all the elements. In verse 4 CD, he says, okay, let us go step by step. 6 chakras. Now, chakra has become, it is very well known. It is a dynamic term of subtle centers. There you have the other symbolism of lotus, but we don't find it in these tantras at all. It is chakra. A chakra always means a dynamic term. It's not just a point. It is a dynamic. Why it is a wheel? And Swamiji, he described that actually when you rise, and here I've given you a number of terms for rising, for elevation. When you rise to the centers, they start moving. So they don't become, and when they are blocked, then they are not called chakra, they are called granthi. So granthi is a knot, chakra is a moving wheel. These terms are very expressive. And so these are knots, and chakras are almost identical depending on their quality. If they are enlivened, as he says afterwards, if they are enlivened, then they are chakras, and if they are blocked, then they are granthis. And granthi, the term granthi already occurs in the Upanishads only in one case at the Hridaya Granthi, the blockage of the heart, the knot of the heart. And of course, the Upanishads are extremely brief. They say, well, when all the knots of the heart are dissolved, then you immediately are released and liberated and all. So there are not all the stages, which in yoga you have so many steps to go through. But the term comes from there, and it means the same, that which is supposed to be living, dynamic, when it is blocked, it becomes a knot which prevents you from moving ahead of that center. Adhara is actually the same thing in terms of a support. Adhara literally means support, and these elements of the subtle body can be seen as supports, because as you move from one to the other, it's like a staircase. You go on one step, and that becomes a support, but it's not the end. You go to the next step, it's another support. So the adharas are parallel to the chakras. Then there are three lakshyas. Lakshya are goals. And here I can give you, this comes from a different context, but it is very important because goals. Yeah. Okay, that is first the adharas. Actually, there are 6 chakras and 16 adharas. The 16 adharas, they comprise the whole body, from the feet. They cover the whole body, and up to Brahmarandra, up to the Dvadashanta. And Kshimaraja defines adhara because they are the support of life. So these, they are not at all, like Granthi is a negative term, but adhara is a very positive term, that you find a support there. Even in meditation, you reach a certain stage, a certain level, that is a support. It's not the ultimate, but it is a support. So, jivasya adhara. So they're all interconnected. And then the 3 goals, lakshya bheda. Lakshya bheda is a very big topic in the other tantras, and I just give you a definition because we are not so. In the Mṛtyujit, which is in our same tradition and in an earlier phase of the tantras, this is in the description by Somadeva Vasudeva, who has written that Yoga of the Mṛtyujit Tantra. The Lakshya Bheda, that literally the varieties of the goal or target, designates the ultimate destination upon which the yogin must fix his attention. Other Shaiva Tantras clarify that these targets are to be understood as the different manifestations through which Shiva can be approached. But this is not our case. The formless Shiva has compassionately lowered himself into these targets so that earnest yogins have something upon which they may focus. Practically, they are taught as yogic paths aimed at Shiva, each promising various incidental rewards. To the yogin engaged in the conquest of the realities, that is Tattvajaya and Mṛtyujit Tantra, the Lakshyas serve as teleological magnets, drawing him towards the sought-after rewards. In the earlier Tantras, Mṛtyujit, Dikshottara, Kirana, etc., the 6 Lakshyas are the 6 manifestations of Shiva as goals or targets. But this is not the case here. But in any case, the having a goal, I mean, whenever you go into any practice, you must have a goal to what to achieve. So this is what is not very explicitly described by the Tantra itself. Trilakshya, Bäumer Panchakam, then 5 voids, 5, which are also in other texts are called Shunya. And you know, in the Vijnana Bhairava, there are a number of meditations on Shunya. But here, these 5 voids are again corresponding, but it's not so easy. I have tried my level best to make them correspond to which level are they, because you have 6 chakras, you have 5 voids, you have 16 adharas, and it's quite a complex system. Now, the meditation or concentration on the void, on aspects of emptiness in the body, in the subtle body, is something very ancient and very, in the Tantras, very much followed. As I say, that Vijnana Bhairava, but not systematically. Vijnana Bhairava is not at all systematic, but here, the 5 voids, they have certain levels to which they correspond. I think this is one table which you have not got a copy, but it's not very easy to. It's easy to understand it in terms of one void, that is the heart. Because there also you have already the Upanishadic meditation on the Hridayakasha, the void, the empty space of the heart. And that becomes in Tantra then the Vyoma, the Hridaya Vyoma. And in the Svachanda Tantra, there is much more explicit and extensive discussion on the 7 shunyas, 7 stages of shunya, which can be correlated with those 5 voids. And I have done this in my book, but it will be too technical for us here. We have very little time to go into these details. 5 voids. Now, 3 energies, Shaktitraya, Samanvita. Combined with the 3 energies, of course, everything is combined with the 3 energies, Ichcha Jnana Kriya. At every stage, you have Ichcha, you have Jnana, you have Kriya. So that is not very much explicit. In the Tantra itself, of course, Shemaraja says more about it. Dharma-traya. Now, 3 dharmans are the 3 luminous abodes, and we have said as symbols of sun, moon, and fire, which symbolize also the 3 eyes. But here it's not directly related to the eyes. Then, one very important topic is nadi. The nadi is, of course, extremely important in both physically and in the subtle body. Different interpretations of nadi in the Upanishads, they are more blood vessels, and in the Tantra and Yoga, they are energy channels and pranic channels. Now, the nadis are, where's my translation? From surrounded by 10 nadis and 72,000 minor channels. 3 primary nadis. The three primary nadis we know, Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna. And then 10. And then what is this 72,000? Well, 72,000 is a number already occurring in the Upanishads. It may mean just innumerable, but they don't even stop there. They even 35 crores of nadis. So the body is, of course, pervaded by all very subtle channels, and then in the yogic process you simplify, you purify. The whole point is that these channels, these nadis, have to be purified until you come to 10, then you come to 3, and finally you come to 1, which is Sushumna. And this whole process is that yogic process. Now this, is surrounded by a host of channels, impure, riddled by diseases, but nonetheless above it, by the sole means of the rising and the supreme nectar of subtle meditation. Now this host of channels riddled by diseases, we know this. I mean, the Ayurvedic physicians, they know it very well when they do their nadi pariksha, and they can diagnose it just by the nadi. So the physical and the body is pervaded by all these nadis, which are the cause of diseases. So that Ayurvedic doctor will tell you you have this nadi and you have this kind of trouble because the nadi is, and so on and so on. So they found that level of Ayurveda up to the yogic level of purifying all these nadis, which are the cause of disease. And this is a fact. To reducing them and to finally making them enter into the central nadi, that is Sushumna. Now, that purification of the nadis is one of the important aspects of the subtle yoga. But here, in verse 2 and 3, where the Tantra speaks of nadis, the 3 nadis, the 10, the 72,000, and I have done a little research on the 72,000, but it's not so important. Important thing is to know that innumerable nadis, which are the carrier of impurity. So an impurity which has to be purified by yoga. Then in verse 4, that riddled by diseases, but who be purified by the sole means of the rising and the supreme nectar of subtle meditation. So the rising here, we have all these terms of rising, and in the Shiva Sutra, we have that beautiful sutra, Udyamo Bhairava. It says Bhairava means the divine is nothing but that upward push, that upward ascent, that move upwards. That is Bhairava. It's simple, brief definition of Bhairava. So the purification of those nadis happens by the nectar of the subtle meditation. And then, of course, the description of what happens starts from verse 6. Here we are in the introductory section which gives you a list of all these components of the subtle body. And then it tells you, and the Sukshma Dhyana, the subtle yoga, is itself Amrita, is itself that nectar of immortality. So, Sukshma Dhyana Amritena. And then by the rising of the supreme nectar of subtle meditation. And then in verse 5, this is the central point of the whole chapter. Apyayanam kurute yogi atmano va parasyacha divya deha sabhavati sarva vyati vivarchita. Then the yogi nourishes or enlivens himself as well as others. And this is so important that from the very beginning of the practice of subtle yoga, it's not just oneself, but by doing that practice, it is for others. It is not only for oneself. And this is very, very important. It will be repeated again, but here in the very beginning, the motivation, as we have seen, the motivation for the whole yoga is compassion. So you cannot do it out of compassion. If you are self-centered and you think, I only want my own enlightenment and nothing else, I'm not interested in what happens to the world, but parasyava, parasyacha. And the goal of the whole subtle yoga is divya deha sabhavati. Then he becomes a divine body. And it's important that those who know Sanskrit, it doesn't say apnoti. It does not say that you obtain a divine body, as if the divine body would be something else. But the very body becomes divine. Bhavati. Divya deha sabhavati. So the whole goal of this subtle yoga is to be divinized, to divinize the body itself. And he adds, sarva vyati vivarjita, free from all diseases. In that sense, that as the nadis are impure because of the malas, there are these 3 malas, the impurities which are making the body through the nadis impure, and the cause of diseases. Any good doctor will tell you this psychosomatic causes of disease and all that. So the divinization of the body itself is the goal. And the freedom from disease is the effect, just a side effect. I mean, of course, we know many yogis had cancer. Many great yogis had cancer. But they have also explained it in a different way. That precisely because they do that yoga for themselves and for others. So they have taken up the karma of the others. And that is why it has manifested in cancer. Not in their own, not because of their own karma, but because they have assumed the suffering of others. We know this from Ramakrishna and Ramat Maharshi and even Swamiji. So divya deha sabhavati, this is the goal of this yoga. Now we start with the actual. I know you have a lot of questions about this terminology, and we can go on discussing about it, but I don't want to waste too much time, as I say, because I have tried very hard to make all these terms correspond and to make a table out of it and so on. But at least some of these terms are well known, like chakra and nadi, and even Bäumer, the voids, and granthi. Now, how they are actually connected in the subtle body, this is also a matter of experience and introspection. So I think what we do, we proceed with, now we come to the actual practice. The beginning was only the statement of fact, these are the elements, and this is the goal. And now, what happens? So from verse 6 to just a moment. Okay. There, you can play that. Let us first do it on the 6 to 8. Reciting.
Yat svarupam svasamvedyam svasam svavyapti sambhavam Svodhitatu parashakti tatstatakalpada Shiva tam bahim madhyamaprane pranapanantari dhruve aham bhutva tato mantram tatstantakalpadam dhruvam Svodhitena hararohe Sandanam sandanena tu Kritva tamabhimanam tu Janmasane nidapayet.
Actually it continues, but let us first concentrate on these 6 and 7. 6 and 7 are very important. We have already heard that the aim of any meditation or practice is to realize one's own true nature, that is Svarupa. Svarupa. So he starts Yat Svarupam Svasamvedyam Swastam. That's Sva, one's own. That which is one's own nature, one's own experience, established in one's own self. The originator of self-pervasion, Svavyapti. That verily is the supreme energy, self-arisen, established in that. She is Shiva, present in his womb. This is a very powerful verse, very powerful. And making immediately a transition from that self with which you're working to the Shakti. So the first part of the verse is related to the self of the yogi, the self of the yogi, to his own essential nature, his own experience, his own being established, and that svavyapti. Now, vyapti is such a powerful term in the whole system, and I would say not only yoga, but in the whole spirituality. Vyapti means pervasion. Now there were pervasion at different realms, from the body to different levels to the cosmos. Mahavyapti, Atmavyapti, Shiva Vyapti, Mahavyapti. She told that universal pervasion is what happens at the end. But you start with your own pervasion. That where the consciousness pervades the body. Svavyapti. But then he shifts from that, the gender, to the feminine. Immediately, the second half of 6, Svodhita to Parashakti. That's the Garbhaka Shiva. Now, Shiva is the Shakti of Shiva. And this supreme energy, she is self-arisen. Sva Udita. We had here Udaya. Udaya, Udita. And this is extremely important to understand the subtle yoga, which is very different from Hatha yoga. Because there, the yogi has nothing to do. What has he got to do? It's a Shakti who does. And in terms of the upayas, it would be Shakti upaya. Sva Udita Parashakti. So that supreme energy is always arisen. And the yogi only has to catch hold of her, if you want. But there's another term for that then. She who is established in the womb of Shiva, she herself is Shiva, and she is self-arisen. So this is extremely important to understand, that there is no effort, there is no doing anything. And in the next verse, he says, exactly in 7, he says, what the yogi can and should do. And it's in one verb. Tan vahen madhyama prane pranapan antare truve. The first half of 7. You see, the more ancient the texts are, the more brevity is there. Then later yoga defines so long explanations and so on. But here, in half a verse, the whole thing is there. Tam means that Shakti. The yogi should lead her, or Vahen should allow her to flow, should make her flow, should cause her to flow. Where? In the central prana, Madhyama Prane. Central prana is Sushumna, of course. And which is stable. It's very important when this word Dhruva is mentioned in any practice or any experience. It has to be stable. Because there are people who have great experiences and sometimes fluctuating and sometimes up and down and so on. But this has to be stable. And that center has to be stable. That Sushumna, that Madhyama Prana is completely stable. And in between prana and apana. See, here it is not said Ida Pingala Sushumna, because these are just descriptions of nadis, but in terms of prana, because prana is the dynamics which happens. Between the prana, here is exhalation and inhalation, and that Madhyama Prana, that central breath or power, which is, of course, in the Sushumna, but it's not said here. Madhyama prana. And it will come again, Madhyama prana, the central breath, and which is Udana. So again, that word Ud, because from the very beginning, Udaya, arising, everything is rising. Udana is the rising breath in the center. And so if we come to conclude with verse 7, then we have a very strong basis for that whole chapter. Tam Vahed. So this Vahed, letting her flow. See, what the yogi has to do only to allow this energy to flow. What more beautiful, what more, you don't have to make any effort, but you have to allow it to happen. You have to allow that Shakti, who is the Parashakti. So there is so much of misunderstanding of Kundalini Yoga. I don't want to go into it. But where people think you have to do a lot and you have to force it and have all kinds of things. She is there. She is the Parashakti. And only you allow her to flow. See, that's the most, nothing to do. Except that openness and that complete openness. And then she will take over. But to let her flow in the central prana, not in the side. So there is an element of concentration is there, that not to let her move in other pranas, but in the center. So there is an element of concentration. And then that I call some of these phrases, brief phrases, I call them sutras. Aham Bhutva, becoming I. What is this? Before he was not I, that yogi, before he was not Aham. It's only when he's completely centered in that Shakti and that Shakti rising in the central prana, then only he is an I. Then only he is that Aham. Now here, Kshemaraja, we have to take his help because he gives a beautiful interpretation of this Aham Bhutva. I have translated it somewhere. In Sanskrit, Aham Bhutva dehadi pramatrita prashamanena purnahantam avished ityartaha. The meaning of becoming I is by pacifying or by subsiding the identification with body, etc., with the individuality identified with the body. Dehadi pramatrita prashamanena. Prashamana, it is very beautiful and this whole system, there's no question of suppressing. Neither suppressing, nor it is just pacifying. Just let it go. Let it go. So that identification with the individuality, once you give it up, then only the true Aham will. And the true Aham means Purnahamtan Avishet. Then he will enter into that fullness of I consciousness, which is of course the divine I consciousness. Purnahamta Avishet. He enters into that fullness of I consciousness. Now this is this Aham Bhutva. And as long as we are distracted, we are not allowing that energy to flow. we are not really ourselves. We are not really that aham. So this is a really sutra giving you the whole practice in a nutshell. But what is practice? There's no practice. Just let her flow, let her act. And this is the very condition of this subtle yoga. So, tato mantram, and then from there, the mantra arises. Actually, aham itself is a mantra also. It's aham and soham, shivoham. It doesn't say here, but it's implied, of course. It's a real aham is soham. From this arises the mantra established in that, firmly present in his womb. Tat garbhagam dhruvam. So this dhruva is mentioned twice. Firm. Only if it is firm. If you are firmly established in that central prana. Otherwise, again, you are distracted here and there, or misguided by your impurities and all. But that letting her flow in the center firmly, with firmness, dhruvam. So this is the entrance into that practice, and now something is there of a practice, but this is in the background. That it's only the energy herself who does it. If you have the illusion that you are doing it, and there's many yogis have fallen into that illusion, that then it is going on the wrong track. So it is she who is doing. The Parashakti. Okay, so sorry, there's no time for discussion, but we can do it in the afternoon. Now we are moving to the meditation hall for half an hour. Yesterday it was too long. Half an hour. We listen to, could you try that? That city? Yeah. We listen to a mantra, which is connected, but not our Netra mantra.